You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. Streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
Hey, everybody. So I don't have a joke today. I've got a story. And this ties into something I told you guys in the past, if you're not familiar with it. I have a neighbor who has a very large German Shepherd named Lobo. And for a while there, Lobo kept getting over their back fence into our yard. And then he figured out how to get into the dog door in our house, which is weird because we have two smaller pit bull sized dogs, about 40-pound dogs. They're not that big. Lobo is a very large dog. Well, he would poke his head in and fill the space and then kind of shimmy his body in. And we had a lot of interesting adventures with waking up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and finding a German Shepherd in my hallway, or my mother who woke up one night finding the dog laying next to her in bed, which that had to be quite frightening. But we got that taken care of. Well, now with that set up, I'm here just hanging out on Saturday, and I hear my dog start barking like crazy. I'm a little curious. So I go out and I look out the front window, and there are 3 squad cars, 6 officers, and they've got a guy pinned to the ground in my front yard. I don't recognize this guy. Doesn't look like a neighbor or anything. I think he was somebody who was trying to run from the cops, started running up our street, and of course they caught him. So I'm watching from the window thinking, I'm not going to go out there because if I suddenly go out my door, might startle the cops, and they have guns. And there's been enough accidental shootings and stuff. I'm going to stay in the house. And that's when Lobo got out. Both Lobo and his pal Rocky got out of the gate. Rocky is a pug. Little different than the giant German Shepherd. So the German Shepherd, who always seems scared when I deal with him, is aggressively going after the cops. Now, not thinking, but the idea, oh no, Lobo's in trouble. I'm out the back door as these cops are all trying to pull pepper spray and stuff like that. And I'm out my gate. I'm like, Lobo, come here. And the dog stops and all the cops stop. And these dogs just look at me like, get back in your yard. And he pauses like, go. And he runs across and he leaps back over the fence. And just then the owner comes out with a leash and puts Lobo on the leash. And all the cops kind of catch their breath. They're like, control that dog. Well, in the meantime, Rocky's still out there. Rocky's this little pug just barking and yapping. And the cops don't really seem that concerned about. One of them starts running around and chases Rocky back in the yard and closes the gate. But yeah, that was my little adventure on Saturday, going from I'm going to stay in the house where it's safe to a dog's in danger. Yeah, you can see my priorities. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. I see we've got Triple B and Mark and Ed. Hello, gentlemen. Ed, I saw your post about dipping Oreos in whiskey and Started looking around for some Oreos to try out that new lovely combination. Haven't got them yet, but will. We have Jay on the board because it's Tuesday and that's when Jay works. And somewhere floating in the background around Jay is Jenna, trying to get her to come on the show just to spice the place up a little bit, But all right, so what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk this week, planning out this week. I'm going to be honest with you guys because you guys put in all your time and energy watching my show, so I should be. So I wanted to let you know that infection is trying to come back, and I'm taking a bunch of oral antibiotics. As long as that continues, I'll be here, and we'll be doing the show all week. If the oral antibiotics aren't enough to kick the infection's butt, I may have to go back in for IV. So if I suddenly disappear, you know why, but I think we're going to get a handle on this because I'm already seeing positive improvements. So, just so you know. So what we're planning for this week is today we're going to talk about Loki Season 2, Episode 2. You can tell my voice is a little weak today. See if I can get that back a little bit. There we go. And then we're trying to set up an interview, which is with a group, I believe. Let me get the name right. I don't want to get the name wrong because they're an important group. But Kyle's trying to set it up. It's Comics Curing Cancer. So we want to get them on and have a talk with them. So I'm not sure which day that's going to be. And then I finished it. I finished reading the Scott Lang Look Out for the Little Guy book. And it's not what I expected. And I liked it a lot for some interesting reasons. And I will get into that one day. I'm gonna dedicate a day to this book because I think it deserves it. Rob Kuttner, who wrote the book, did a remarkable job. So it's more than just a meta book. There's some actual good stuff to it. So, oh, thank you, Ed. Yeah, I'm hoping so too. All right, so let's get to the news. It's always fun coming back on a Tuesday with the news because there's a lot of news. And it's a lot of good news. I mean, because there's a lot of horrible news out there. I spent most of my morning watching the news and hearing about hospitals being bombed and not knowing who bombed it and watching Congress just eat its own tail. And just, there's so much negative news out there that I like coming in and talking entertainment news. It's just so much nicer. So let's start off with Dan reading a book called Look Out for the Little Guy. Is hilarious for me. Yeah, I feel like I need to avoid stepping on people. All right. So after 30 years, when it first appeared as an animated television series, Gargoyles is being developed as a live action project. And the two names involved in it are Gary Dauberman and James Wan. They're from the Atomic Monster banner. Now, they collaborated on the Annabelle horror movies. So they're the ones teaming up for this 1990s cartoon remake. Now, Dauberman will write, executive produce, and showrun the series with Atomic Monster, the company Ron and Michael Clear created, joining, and they'd be part of the executive producers. The project is described as being in very early development, and this is for Disney branded television. Gargoyles was made by Walt Disney Television Animation and aired 3 seasons from 94 to 97. Seems like it was more, but just 3 seasons. The premise involved gargoyle statues moved from a castle in Scotland to modern day New York. Once in the Big Apple, the statues awaken, from a 1,000-year-old spell and take on the mantle of protecting the city, becoming, as the show's narrator gravely says, stone by day, warriors by night. The series, created by Greg Weisman. By the way, Greg Weisman is currently writing the Gargoyle series for Dynamite. So if you're a fan of the series but haven't checked out the comics they're doing, they're from the show's creator. Weisman is writing the main series, the Dark Ages series. I think he also just wrote the Halloween special, which is coming out this week. And this came out at the same time as like Batman the Animated Series and the X-Men stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, I remember watching Gargoyles mainly because it was a lot of the voice actors were from Star Trek Next Generation. And I was a huge Next Generation fan. So I watched some of the Gargoyles, but I was 24, 25, 26. Not really the animated time. You know, I'd watched Batman and stuff, but that was about it. So, all right. Moving on. After a stellar run in the theaters that saw it come in as the highest grossing film in the history of Sony Pictures Animation, Spider-Man's Across the Spider-Verse has set its Netflix premiere date. One of the top grossing of the year, a take of $690 million worldwide. The film bows in the US on October 31st. So Halloween night, you can watch Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse on Netflix. Details as to the rollout in other territories haven't been disclosed yet. The first of two sequels to the 2018 Best Animated Feature Oscar winner Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse stars Shamil Moore and Haley Steinfeld. Across the Spider-Verse comes to Netflix as part of the studio's 5-year pay-one licensing deal with the streamer, which has seen myriad Sony titles arrive to the top services charts. So there you go. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Halloween night, Netflix. So, or you got something to watch on Thanksgiving Day if you're not a Detroit Lions fan. All right, there is a Western being filmed right now, which is not that big a deal, but A, there's an actor's strike, so the fact that it's currently filming is interesting, and B, it's who the actors are. This film stars Pierce Brosnan, Samuel L. Jackson, and Brandon Lassard. And they're currently up in Montana shooting Unholy Trinity, a Western helmed by Richard Gray, who did Robert the Bruce. And it has secured a SAG-AFTRA interim agreement, meaning that they can move on and produce the movie, which I still don't understand that. How is it that, you know, some movies get to continue on, some don't? Seems really weird to me. The movie is described as a tale of revenge, dark secrets, and buried treasure. The film is set against a turbulent backdrop of 1870s Montana, because we all know how bad it was in Montana in the 1870s, right? It picks up in the moments before the execution of Isaac Broadway, as he gives his estranged son Henry an impossible task: murder the man who framed him for a crime he didn't commit. Intent on fulfilling his promise, Henry travels to a remote town of Trinity, where an unexpected turn of event traps him in a town and leaves him caught between Gabriel Dove, played by Brosnan, and the town's upstanding new sheriff, a mysterious figure known as Saint Christopher, played by Jackson. I don't know. A Western with a black sheriff. Insert your own Blazing Saddles joke here. So I just like the idea of Pierce Brosnan and Samuel L. Jackson playing off each other. I love that idea. Just two great actors. So, okay, moving on. In celebration of Loki season 2, Marvel's Avengers Campus at Disneyland Paris. I don't know if this takes effect in the other ones, but in Disneyland Paris, they are now serving up the TVA Automat Pie, that very vibrant green key lime pie, or key lime pie variant 85, they call it, is currently available at the Pim Kitchen restaurant to represent the actual pie that will be in the iconic show. While there's no TVA or pie automat at Avengers Campus, at least not yet, fans of the series can get it, like I said, at the Pim Kitchen. There's a few other things that they're doing in Disney Paris to boost the Loki presence. He's going to be appearing more at the Hotel New York, at the Art of Marvel, where he interacts with guests in the lobby. And while Loki has already been present in the Avengers Campus, more appearances will be made. In addition, Avengers both young and old enjoy a special God of Mischief mocktail. So they have a God of Mischief drink that is a pineapple-flavored alcohol-free libation with a rosemary garnish and an engraved ice cube with the helmet of Loki on it. And these will all be available from October 6th to November 10th. So if you're going to Paris, there you go. Let's see if I'm missing anything here in the chat. C.B. Cebulski, editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, really seems set off Peter and MJ not in a relationship or breaking up and not married in a Q&A with fans at New York City Comic Con. Well, that's interesting. Ed says, since they say all sci-fi based on Western, would the black shirt technically make him Darth Vader? Yeah, I think so. Nita says he kind of interrogated one of the folks asking about this, stating that the person was only attached to when they first read Spider-Man, when the guy said he started after OMD. One more day. Okay. Yeah, then Cebulski ceased to debate. Interesting. Nita, that's a really tough question about giving fans what they want, because fans who are getting what they want tend to be quiet. The fans who aren't getting what they want tend to be very vocal. So if you give fans what they want, what you're doing is feeding one group and starving another. So you can either, the vocal group is not necessarily the majority. So you have to be very careful with that. The best thing to do is tell the story you want to tell, and fans will either buy it or not. And if they buy it, you can tell in sales. If they don't, you'll tell in sales. So that's the way you can tell if you're giving fans what they want. They make movies to sell toys. I think they used to. I don't think it's quite that case anymore, because I don't think the toys sell as much as they used to, but the prices have gone up, so they don't have to sell as many. But yeah. Jay says fans never know what they want, in my opinion. Yep. Yeah, like I said, I think it's just the people who complain, because happy people tend to just go off and be happy. So, all right, moving on to the next story. During a sequence in Loki Season 2, Episode 2, revolving around Hunter X5, we're going to talk about this in a minute, the actual episode. In 1977, that's when the movie premiere is, we see some posters on the wall, movie posters, and one of them shows that Kevin Feige has not changed. If you don't like something, he's going to double down, triple down, quadruple down until you are worn down. And on the wall is a glimpse of Kumail Nanjiani's character of Kingo in a movie poster. It's a movie poster we've seen before. It was on display in his airplane when he was talking about how he's part of a lineage of actors where it was all him, basically. So, Mobius and Loki are walking down the street, and there's a bunch of movie posters. Another one is the Phone Ranger, which is hilarious because there is actually a Marvel character called the Phone Ranger who looks exactly like they have in the poster. But the other is Kingo in The Great Kingo, who is supposed to be his own grandfather, I think, in the Bollywood pictures. So I just find that very interesting that they keep putting up these Kingo movie posters, and they're leaning into that. I mean, there was one during the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special too. So they're not giving up on the Eternals or that Kingo is a huge star. So let's see. Mark says, Todd McFarlane is a toy genius, but what about Spawn on the big screen? Will it ever happen? He keeps trying, and I know that he wants to do another movie, and he wants to do it almost like Jaws, where you don't really see Spawn, and there's always talk about it, but I think it's like The Crow, a remake of The Crow. Always talked about, everybody thinks it's a great idea, but actually getting it done, I don't know. Nita says, I saw a statistic that after AMD, their sales decreased. It was 170,000 to 663,000. OMD, one more day. See, those are kind of hard. It's hard to base those based on that because when you do a special event, there's a lot of speculators that come out and will buy a lot of books. So what you have to do is look at what the numbers were on normal books prior to OMD. So what usually happens is a special event comes up, you have a new number one, whatever, and then the sales end up going back to or slightly below where you were before, because that's the deterioration of readership. You do something big to bring it back, and then eventually they go, oh yeah, I wasn't reading this for a reason, and then they stop again. So they did think Ant-Man 3 would be a hit, and I'll tell you the truth, I like Ant-Man 3. I don't understand the hatred for it. Are some of the special effects a little weak? Yes. Is the look of MODOK strange? Yes. But I like it. I like the story. So, will the experience be at the LA Comic-Con? I am not aware of that. And I know it's in my neck of the woods. I should be. And I've been to the LA Comic-Con in the past, but I haven't done a convention since the pandemic, partly because of the pandemic and then because of the my own health issues. So I don't think anybody will be there this year, but if I can keep improving, then maybe I'll be back out there next year, or at least some of the LA conventions. Loki's doing a good job at hyping Kang. Yeah. I hope one day we can do cons, maybe a future thing. Yeah. All right. I don't have my watch on. It's recharging. Let's go ahead and we'll take our first break. And when we come back, we will talk about Loki episode 2. Be right back.
Did you know that every experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds, a promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
According to a statistic that I just made up, people spend 4 hours a day changing the television channel. People who watch The Experience don't do that. Save yourself a ton of time by tuning into The Experience and enjoying our new original programming 7 days a week. And then tell your friends. Think about the money they could save on batteries in the remote alone just by tuning into The Experience. Find out more by scanning the QR code below. Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find the link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We've got a fun lineup today, not right after this, but at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern will be the Minute to Skim It with Miss Jen, producer Kyle, and Jay as they go through the new books this week. And then we have another adventure with the Midhunters. So you want to stick around for that. Nita keeps talking about the Ant-Man movie. And a lot of the things people are complaining about strike me as odd. Because Marvel never said they're doing exactly what they do in the comics. Never claimed to do that. Never claimed to say that. And something that we spoke of Todd McFarlane before. When I was younger, I went to a convention and Todd McFarlane was there. And this was early on, before the first Spawn movie came out. And the animated series was on HBO. And he was explaining why the series was different from the comics and why the movie would be different as well. And he said, well, why would you want it to be the same? You already know that story. The movie is that writer and director's take on the concept. The animated series is that creative team's take on the concept. Todd's take on the concept is his comics. It's Todd's concept, but he is trusting these people to do their take on it. And that's the way comics always work. You know, when Spider-Man comes along, yeah, there's certain aspects that are standard, but the characters change and then get reset often based on who's writing them, you know? So looking at what happens in the comics and looking what happens in the movies and going, well, that's wrong because it didn't happen in the comics that way. You've got the comics, you've got that story. This is trying to give you something different. MODOK, let's be honest here, really honest. MODOK is a silly-ass looking character. We're picking on the fact that he's comic relief here. But where did we see MODOK last? That would be the Patton Oswalt animated series. That was a comedy. So it's not like they were the first ones to play MODOK for comedy. Because I love Jack Kirby. I'm in comics because of Jack Kirby. My career choice was because I met Jack Kirby when I was young. Jack Kirby created a really silly-ass character. Tiny little feet, tiny little hands, big-ass head in a floating chair. That's really bizarre, and it's not the only time Jack created a silly-looking character. The Awesome Android. He's just a blockhead. You know? Some of the costumes that Jack came up with are pretty bizarre. He had an amazing sense of style and creativity, but some of the stuff he came up with was just bizarre. MODOK played straight is difficult. How do you look at a giant floating head and expect people who have never read comics, who have never seen the character in anything else, or their exposure was the Patton Oswalt series, and expect them to go, oh yeah, that guy's menacing. Was he comic relief? Yes. But he also tied the movies together, being that he was Darren Cross. It answered what happened to Darren at the end. I actually liked the idea. Do I think the special effects budget or the bet could have been better? Yeah, the head, they should have just given him hair or a helmet over the top or something. But they decided to go bold with a headband. So that didn't look that great, but how they played the character, I didn't have a problem with. And Ant-Man movies tend to be on the funnier side. They tend to be more lighthearted and more comedic. Putting that aside, talking about Kang, and I'm doing that because it ties into Loki. Everybody gets on the movie because Kang got beat by a bunch of ants, or Kang got beat by Ant-Man. When he fought, at the point he fought Ant-Man, his armor was busted up. And without his armor, he's just a normal guy. And he was still beating the crap out of Scott Lang. Had Hope not intervened, I don't think Scott would have beat him. And he got sucked into the quantum, whatever that thing was. I forget. But if you look in the comics, Kang gets beaten all the time, constantly. Every time he's shown up, he's gotten beaten. That's the way it works. Kang gets beaten, and then he goes off and he tries to get more powerful, and he comes back and he tries again. That's Kang. That's almost all the villains. You know how we know this is because when I open a book, a comic like today, if I drove over to the comic shop, picked up the latest Marvel comic, it's not going to be in a world where they're all subjugated by Kang or Thanos. The heroes have won. So why is it that big a deal that in Ant-Man, Kang got beaten and pulled into that, into the heart of his machine, or because that might be the catalyst for him getting stronger. So if those are your complaints about Ant-Man, if you're complaining about the special effects, I get it. They were rushed. There was definitely could be some improvement. But overall, I liked the movie. I enjoyed how they had the characters portrayed. I would like to have seen Hope and Scott get a little more screen time together, because I think their relationship is worth exploring more, and it tends to get lost. But the rest of it, I enjoyed it. I like how they handled Hank. I like the references to the book. Yeah, it was to me a good third movie in the set. So I'm with Marvel. When I went and saw Ant-Man, I walked out, my thought was, oh yeah, this is going to go good. I don't know what people are thinking anymore, what they're expecting. Or maybe it's back to what I said earlier, that the people out there complaining about the movie may not be the majority. because most people are like me and they're like happy with the movie. Just the ones that decide to go out and go on the internet are the ones who weren't happy with it. So we have to understand that in this day and age, there is the vocal minority, which, they scream the loudest, but it doesn't mean they're the largest group. So, all right, let me catch up real quick. Jay says that's how I felt about the DCE movies. They didn't have to be exactly their comic counterparts. If Squirrel Girl can beat Thanos, Ant-Man can beat Kang. Yep. Mojo Quaid said, people take the movies way more seriously than the source material ever took itself. Exactly. Hey, Kenneth, how you doing? Ed says, in a way, it's the same thing they did with Ahsoka. They assumed and a lot don't. So those who don't think it's stupid. And Mojo says, they're not the majority. They're just loud, so everybody thinks they're the majority. Exactly. And I think we have to get past that, because we live in an age where everybody gets their 15 minutes of fame based on who screams the loudest. So, all right, I am way over and haven't really talked about Loki season 2 yet. All right, let's talk Loki episode 2. The only problem I have with episode 2 is that episode 1 was brilliant. Episode 1 was fast-paced, great, snappy dialogue, moving about, giving us a bunch of concepts to play with. Just brilliant. It's one of the best things I think Marvel has produced. There was no way episode 2 was going to live up to episode 1. No fault of episode 2. Episode 2 was a very good episode. The series so far is doing, in my opinion, doing very well. But because they have to slow down, do a little bit more character stuff, and start connecting some of the dots that they threw out there, there was no way it was going to be as good as episode 1, which is fine. That said, it's a good episode. I love the stuff with Brad, that he suddenly decides he's going to be an actor, that he's living on the main timeline because he knows it's going to happen. I love all the Easter eggs and references, like I said, the Kingo one, the Phone Ranger one, the Zaniac one. Talk about just great Easter egg, pulling an obscure Marvel villain from Thor and putting it into the Loki series, I thought was just absolute brilliant. And then later on, there's a scene where Brad and Mobius are talking at the McDonald's. And Mobius says, well, tell me about Zaniac. And Brad starts defending it, saying it's not just a horror movie. It's elevated. It's an elevated thriller. It's cinema. And it's like, okay, you guys are just picking on Scorsese now, or you're trying to get back at Scorsese. And I loved that. And by the way, that whole scene of them going back and forth, that was just the two actors riffing. They didn't actually have anything written for them. They just thought, well, we got you two guys sitting here. Let's throw some lines back and forth. And it made the episode. So, but yeah, that was all just made up on the spot. I loved seeing Loki being the god of mischief again. I loved him using his powers to capture X5 and his illusion ability and his shadow manipulation, and the fact that there was no need for the shadows to take the form of the horns, because he wasn't wearing that. But they did it anyway, and I thought, lovely touch. The interactions between Obi and Casey. And I love that Casey is starting to get more prominence. He's showing up more. How excited he was to meet the guy that wrote the handbook, wanting the signature. All of that stuff I thought was spectacular. I really liked that. And this season, to me, is actually better than the first season. I liked the first season, but it wasn't my favorite. I was more into Falcon and Winter Soldier and Moon Knight because I'm more of a straightforward storytelling guy. So, the ones that are just, Hawkeye is one of my favorites because I can sit down and just enjoy it. And where WandaVision isn't necessarily one of my favorites, this is even making me want to go back and rewatch Loki again, the first season. So, really like that. I'm curious what's going to happen next because I thought Dox was going to be a bigger threat. I think she still will be. I don't think you hire somebody like that actress who is from Game of Thrones to be a character if you're not going to use her for a couple episodes, So just having her in there for 2 episodes, it really does seem like, okay, we're going to have to get more with her, Plus, the title Breaking Brad was a great title. But, Kate Dickey is a very good actress. So just to bring her in for that short of a part, seems like there's going to be more. I've heard online a lot of people thinking that she may be a variant of Sylvie. The problem is that you get online and people start coming up with these theories and they get more and more outlandish. So Dox is a variant of Sylvie, but Sylvie's a variant of Loki. So General Dox is a variant of Loki? That seems like a stretch. And now I see people talking about the guy at the McDonald's that Sylvie works at as being possibly Mobius. It's like, why would they do that? What would they gain from doing that? So I think what happens with these Marvel shows is that there's a lot of online people that go out and do these speculation stuff, and they get pretty wild. She's Mephisto. Absolutely, she's Mephisto. But they do these things, and then when it turns out it's not, it's just more of a straightforward story. And if you'll notice, it's always the straightforward story. It's never as twisty as people want it to be or come up with. It's always just very straightforward. But they still do these videos. They still do these wild speculation videos. And I've done a few wild ass speculations, but that's normally based on things that happen in the comics and things that are, supposed to be happening in the films and stuff. And I connect the dots. It's like, this is a possibility. Just to look at the guy who's playing the kid at the McDonald's and go, oh, he's got to be Mobius. I don't see anything that makes me think that. Could it be? Sure, why not? But it's a stretch. I mean, I didn't see any simple moment where they go, he doesn't have that broken nose that Mobius has or Owen Wilson has. I don't see anything to make that glue happen. So let's see. Theories can be fun, but people absolutely ruin a show for themselves with building up a story based on nothing, and none of their ridiculous expectations are met. Exactly. It's not even just Marvel stuff. Have you guys watched the show From? Haven't heard of From. I'll have to check that out. But yeah, and I think that started with WandaVision, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And you would think when WandaVision ended and Ralph Boner was just Ralph Boner and no Mephisto, that people would go, maybe we should hold the brakes. Full speed ahead. Just going to keep coming up with theories. So, I think now, going into speculation, and this is only based on trailers, I think we're going to get to see Victor Timely soon. It looks like they're setting it up that they need basically a Kang. They need a Kang variant to save the TVA. And Victor Timely may be the most agreeable, But how they end up on Victor Timely, I don't know. But we should be getting him. One of the things I've heard is Victor Timely is going to be a huge part of the third episode, which we get Thursday. But yeah, I think they're going to bring him in either third or fourth episode. So it makes sense. And we've seen clips in the trailer of like somebody doing the little miniature of Mobius going out to the loom, or a figure going out to the loom. And in the background, you can see Victor watching. So should be interesting to see how this plays out. But yeah, I expect Victor Timely, and I think they're going to do a great job of not reforming the character, but giving more depth to the Kang character. I know there's been a lot of talk lately about Marvel and, they're taking Daredevil Rebirth or Born Again. They're taking it back to the, got rid of everybody. They're rewriting it. They're just rewriting some of it. They're keeping some of what they've already filmed. Certain shows are being canceled. No, they're being postponed until they can get a new writing team or whatever. There's again, a lot of people are trying to get hits by claiming that Marvel's dying. Marvel still seems to be doing pretty well. Guardians of the Galaxy did great. Ant-Man didn't do horrible. I mean, what did it make? Let's see. Box Office Mojo. Ant-Man Wasp. Quantumania is a word I didn't realize I would type as much as I did. That made $476 million worldwide. 476 million isn't a bad take. Made 214 domestically, 261 internationally. Don't you think that Warner Brothers would kill to make that much on one of their movies recently? Yeah, they made more than I did last year too. But, Warner Brothers would kill for the Flash to have made that much, or Blue Beetle, or if Aquaman can. I don't consider 476 million a failure. Yeah. I don't know. Don't get it. So, all right. Take our final break and we'll come back and wrap up the show. Be right back.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave?
Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Go follow The Experience on TikTok at @the_EXP1 or scan the QR code on the screen. Our TikTok is like everywhere else we are, except you only have to deal with us for a minute. Seems like a win-win to me.
Well, now you got me wondering, Ed. Quantumania is said to have cost $200 million to make. Made $476 million. That's not counting video on demand. That's not counting DVD sales, Blu-ray sales. And yes, people still buy Blu-rays even if Best Buy isn't going to carry them anymore. One bit of news just popped up. Disney Plus has announced that the continued migration of the Spider-Man movies will be adding Far From Home on November 3rd. So starting November 3rd, you'll be able to watch Mysterio and all his tricks on Disney Plus. So that's kind of cool. Jay says, I've said this ad nauseum, a movie's not making $1 billion doesn't mean it failed. Apparently, though, if you don't hit that mark, it's trash. Yeah. You know, Ant-Man's not known for doing huge numbers. I mean, what were the other movies? Let's see, Ant-Man and the Wasp made $622 million. So it did a little better, but it actually did better internationally, with the domestic take being about the same, 216 million, both of them. And then just Ant-Man itself did 519. So yeah, it's down from the other two, but not so far that it's like, oh my God, what are we doing? I don't know. I like the movie, and I think I think more people are giving it a chance on Disney Plus. You know, this was not what I planned on talking about today, but we've totally gone off topic. But it was sort of related, being the Loki and Kang. Yeah, here we go. Critic review was only 46%. The audience score is 82%. That's not a horrible score. It says the general public, people who don't know stories or characters except for the movies, are on an endgame hangover. They expect everything to be epic, like Ant-Man just fine. There you go. So, And I got to tell you, I've seen some bad special effects, but none of the special effects in Ant-Man took me out of the movie. I've been taken out of movies and that just looked like, why is he suddenly made of rubber? You know, those type of special effects. So, no, I like Ant-Man. I've seen it a couple times now. I even watched the director's commentary. I love director's commentaries most of the time. Taika Waititi's most recent one for Thor Ragnarok, or excuse me, Thor Love and Thunder, was painful. Did not like that one, but I liked his Ragnarok commentary because I think he had other people with him. With Love and Thunder, it was just him. It got kind of boring. So, all right, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Tomorrow, like I said, we're either going to talk to the comics curing cancer people, or we'll talk about the Scott Lang book if we want to continue the Ant-Man thing. And then hopefully the other will be the other day. Hope you guys stick around for a minute to skim it and the Mint Hunter. And I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.